It is inside the CMS Studio right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That, of course, was the Babies. Brand new stuff there with a song called I See You There. And a guy I'm hoping to see here in Cleveland in another month or so. It's John Bisaha, the singer of the Babies. John, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you today?
Excellent, man. Well, John, I got to tell you right up front, when I was offered to interview both yourself and Wally, I went back and listened back through a lot of old stuff, a lot of YouTube stuff of the new stuff, and man, you bring it, dude. I mean, you really bring it like the old school.
Well, thank you very much. I kind of think I am still kind of an old school guy, just doing it today. I was around when the Babies were around back in the day, just a little bit younger, but, just as hungry and just as energetic, and I'm really happy to be able to bring the energy tonight, and today it's great.
Sure. Now, no secret, you're stepping into some very, very big shoes with the Babies. Talk a little bit about how you got discovered by the band, how you got the gig, and, if that was or was not at all intimidating to jump into a band that has had such a big history.
It was a dream come true for myself. This is the technology age, right? Back when we were doing it back in the 70s and the 80s and, early 90s, there was no real technology. Internet wasn't around. Cell phones weren't around. You actually had to be there to experience it, and maybe carry one of those brick camcorders on your shoulder to try to,
right,
take any kind of a video of any kind of shows. But, in this day and age, it's very cool to reconnect with friends that you haven't seen in years. And one of my friends was a drummer that I played with back in the early 90s named Mike Hansen. Mike was in a band called Glass Tiger, and he's done a bunch of other gigs over the years. He's right now playing with Hurricane. Okay. But Mike called me up out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, I've got a audition for you if you're into it." And I was doing my own thing at the time and getting ready to open up for Roger Hodgson that week, so I was getting ready to go to a rehearsal, and I'm like, well, you know what? Yeah, if it's a 70s and 80s band who needs a lead singer, to replace the old one, I might be into that. Or maybe a brand new act that's got something that really needs that, that rock vocal with a real major label and hit. He goes, yeah, it's one of those. So I'm like, okay, cool. Which one is it? And he starts playing the name game, and by the end of a couple of names, I thought it was bad English.
All right.
Because he dropped Ricky Phillips and Jonathan Cain. I'm like, yeah, okay, so bad English. But he goes, well, you said 70s and 80s. And I said, okay, hold on. Are we talking Tony and Wally? And he goes, absolutely. And I pulled over. I said, okay, take down the numbers the right way. You get me in touch with these guys and get me in front of them. So that's how it all kind of happened. It was about 3 months of a nice whirlwind at the, I guess, the end of, say, 2012, because we're hitting, into the fourth year and, bringing this thing back. But nice 3-month whirlwind, and at the end of the day, here I am. So, it's a great thing. I was a big fan of the Babies back in the day. So when I would write my material, I would write something that had girl background vocalists and potentially maybe some horns and some strings. I was a big fan of the Babies, big fan of Chicago and ELO. That was the makeup of my band.
Okay.
So, it was a dream come true to be able to do something like that, where, now I'm singing for the Babies. Phil and John Waite's shoes, you got it. I mean, at first, there was a lot of pressure, and, I really wanted to make sure that I was bringing things, as true to the sound. So I sing a lot of the licks. I mean, it's, I do virtually 90+% of really what John's saying, because I know that the fans want to hear that, but I might bring something of myself into it as well. So I have a great time doing it. Phil and John's shoes is a big call. I think I'm able to do it, and I think I just bring a little bit of myself to it. We rock a little bit harder than the Babies did back in the day, and so I come from that vein. I'm more of the 80s and 90s versus the 70s and 80s, right?
Sure.
So that's where our energy comes from. So
okay.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, since you talked a little bit about the pressure, let me expound on that a little bit. I've interviewed Arnel Pineda, and certainly I've known Kelly Hansen since he was in Hurricane. So, I've had the chance to talk to these guys, and they have different opinions about what that pressure is, A, and who it comes from, B. When I spoke to Arnel, he really didn't seem like he cared at all about I guess that's the wrong way to put it. He didn't feel pressure from the fans nearly as much as he felt from Journey, from the actual guys in Journey, where Kelly, he stepped in and had to spend at least a year hearing about Lou Gramm. So I'm curious for you, when you mentioned the pressure, where did the pressure come from for you? Was it from the band? Was it from the audience? Was it both? Was it yourself?
No, yeah, you know what? The pressure, actually, you're right. You hit it at the last. It's more from yourself than anybody else. I want to make sure that I do justice to these songs, because that's why we're back. We're back to be able to do, the catalog is very, very rich, and a lot of people don't know how deep and rich the Babies catalog was, but I just want to make sure that I do justice to these songs, because at the end of the day, it's not about the pressure we have, me filling in for John or taking over, where John left off. It's all about bringing these songs back and doing them justice. So most of the pressure hits on yourself, but at the end of the day, hey, I know that if I do my best and I do my job, then, it's all going to be great. Side story, Arnell. 1986 was doing a DoD tour overseas.
Okay.
We were like Japan, Korea, Okinawa, the Philippines, and the like. We were basically a rockin' band. We played with El DeBarge, Loretta Lynn, and a bunch of LDS kids that were doing a variety show. That was the 4 acts that we would bring into all these, tents, mess halls, and variety show places that we were able to go do stuff for the armed forces across, those different countries. So we go into the Philippines, and we get there around 7 o'clock, and they say, go out to Cal Street, go to Cal Jam. You guys got a gig tonight at 9 o'clock for the civilians. And we're like, okay, cool. And they're like, so you get there around 8 or so, you guys go on at 9. So we walk through the door at 8 o'clock, and this is right when Raised on Radio was just out. So the Babies' comeback, right? I mean, not the Babies, but it was Journey's comeback, if you will, because they hadn't done anything for quite a while. And we walk into the scene, and we're listening to Journey as we're walking through the door.
Wow.
And it's like, it's Journey. And then we turn the corner, and there is 16-year-old Arnell Pineda, just jamming, and we did our set, and then afterwards we all hung with their band and stuff. Couldn't speak a lick of English, but boy, he sounded 99% just like the tone that Steve brings. That's a voice. So
yeah.
Absolutely, great time meeting him back in the day. So we have contact once in a while. It's kind of fun to remind him I knew you back when you were 16.
Right. Very cool, man. Well, John, you've had the chance now to record with the Babies and recorded a strong record. Did you have actual input into it, or were you singing their songs that they had been working on for however many years, or how did that all work?
The record that we came up with was a whirlwind in 2 months.
Okay.
So Wally had been living out in Florida, and we were trying to get him to move and relocate to California so we could all be together and get ready to do our gigs, and we really needed to record this album because if we had something to push, it made us relevant, made a reason for us to be able to go out on the road, and have something to at least support, as well as, show the fans that, the Babies weren't done. So Walt was, we'd done a couple of shows, and then Walt, we would fly him in, and then he flew back one last time to Florida, packed himself up, and the wife and the cats, and came across country. But he didn't get into town until, I want to say, the first week of February of that year, of 2014, and we needed to get the record to the distributors completely mixed and mastered by tax day.
Okay.
So we literally had 2 months to get that thing done. So we fast-tracked the heck out of it. At one point I used to talk about how fast that record came together. It was the first time, or the next time we play these songs off the record would be the first time we actually played them as a band. So it was a collective. Half the record was brought by Tony and Wally working on a bunch of songs back after the Babies had broken up, so back on cassette tapes, some DAT tapes, half the record, right? Just instrumental tunes
sure.
that, I would go put my lyric to. And then Joey and I worked on a couple of things, and Joey worked on another, great set of the tunes. I think, another almost virtually half the record was something that was Joey written, myself written, or Wally and Tony instrumentally back in the day that we put lyrics to. So it was a combined effort, but we had to fast track it. So there's no organic, it was very odd that we didn't sit in the studio, write, 12 songs, 14 songs, because that's how many we tracked,
right.
Write 14 tunes and track them. It was, hey, here's 55, 60 songs. Okay, great, let's pare them down. We get it down to 30. Okay, great, here's 30 songs. Snippets, really. Some of them had finished content. Some were just, like I said, instrumentally. And we pared that down to 20. Then we pared it down to 16. And then we tracked 14 within 6 weeks, mixed and mastered in 2, so that we could present a record. So it was a whirlwind effort. It was produced at Tony's studio out in Chatsworth called Silver Dream Studios. And, so he did all the engineering and the production on it, and, but man, you blink the eye and there it goes. It was very, very quick.
And what's unique about hearing that story is if you listen to it against anything else in the catalog, it fits. It doesn't sound choppy in any way, shape, or form, not only as an individual record, but as compared to, what the band is best known for. It's a little heavier.
Absolutely. It's a little heavier, right. There's a couple of tunes that, like right out of the gate, Every Side of You, that's a classic Babies tune, right? And then we hit you with a couple of deep cut type things, and, then we've got the couple of hits. I don't know if you've got the cuts that have Not Ready to Say Goodbye on it, because that was actually the first song we recorded for that record, but the distributor elected to keep it off the actual physical, album, which was very odd for us and kind of pissed us off a little bit. But, that's classic Babies, right? We've got the horns, we've got the strings, we've got the babettes, and that's kind of what we bring to all our gigs, right? It's 7 people on stage doing full justice to the record.
Sure.
Nothing stripped down.
Absolutely.